Hi everyone, today I'm going to discuss a randomized controlled trial that followed a study to see if physical activity can really improve brain cognitive function. This study was conducted by Lifestyle Interventions and Independence for Elders. The goal of the trial was to determine if physical activity had any impact on cognitive function, and the time frame was over 24 months. They got 1,635 participants to participate in the study. The requirements were they had to be aged 70 to 89, and they found their participants in over 8 different community living facilities in the USA. And basically for this study, they had a group of people take like a physical activity group over 24 months, and then they had another group that took health education courses. And in the end, they compared to see if any cognitive function was improved. So the methods for this study were, again, men and women were chosen 70 to 89 years old, and they were all high risk for mobility disabilities based on an assessment of lower extremity functional limitations. But all of them could walk 40 meters without assistance for at least 15 minutes. So that was one of the requirements that they needed to be in the study. And none of the participants had any pre-existing conditions. None of them had been diagnosed with dementia or had any significant cognitive impairment. And most of the participants, almost more than 2/3, had a college degree out of them. And in order to recruit the people, they sent out mass mailing forms. They reached people on newspapers, radio, TV. They went and advertised at churches, health fairs. They went to senior centers, and medical clinics were all basically advertising and recruiting. And everybody who was a part of the study had to write an informed consent. So there was no issues there. And then again, they were either assigned to a physical activity intervention or they were assigned to aging health educational program. So the physical activity program, that focused on walking, strength, flexibility, and balance. And they attended 2 center-based interventions a week, and then they had to do their own at home 3 to 4 times a week. So again, they just focused on the walking, strength, flexibility. So 2 of them were guided by people, and then the other ones they had to do on their own. The health education, those participants attended weekly workshops during the first 26 weeks. And then after that, they went to the workshops monthly. Each of those sessions were 60 to 90 minutes long, and they consisted of questionnaires, demonstrations, guest speakers, and some flexibility exercises. The health education activities were consistent among all 8 sites throughout the whole study. And after all of that, there was assessments done every 6 months by in-person staff. Each group got assessed, the physical activity and the health education. If they were not able to go to the facilities to be assessed, they were done either on the phone, at home, or proxy assessments were attempted to gather the information every 6 months. So the physical activity was assessed, their cognitive function tests were performed by certified examiners and at baseline, and then they did it again at 24 months. So they got, at baseline, they did the mental assessment, and then at the end, they did it again to really get accurate data if there was cognitive decline or an increase in cognitive function. And then at baseline and at 24 months, they were either assigned no cognitive impairment, mild cognitive impairment, or dementia. So between the groups, 818 were assigned to the physical activity group, and 817 were assigned to the educational group. So it was pretty even amongst the groups. So using those checklists on the worksheet, I did an evaluation to see if there was any bias in this study, and I used the 6 components. So I'm going to discuss each one of those and tell you if I had found bias or not. So the first one was the objectivity. When completing this checklist, I didn't find any bias. When I did the first one, they really had good methods for this study, and they had a lot of data to support their conclusions. And based on this checklist, there didn't seem to be any threat to validity in this study, just, like I said, based off of what I interpreted from it. 2, the internal design validity. So there was 3 factors that I did notice, although they were really low threat to validity, I think. The first one was the testing, which on the worksheet would be number 20 on the checklist. So for this one, they had someone run, obviously, the cognitive function test to see if their cognitive impairment was impaired in any way. And since there was like somebody present, there could be an a way that the results are altered, but that is also pretty low because cognitive function, is kind of, it's there or it's not. So that could be, again, it was just a really, really low threat. So I don't think it really altered the study much that there were people present to do the cognitive exams. I found a low threat as well to potential bias or distortion during the process of recall. Considering all the participants are over the age of 70, they could have a hard time recalling facts or have memory issues at times. So when they were examined or they did their examination, they could have had, the answers may or may not be 100% true, just again, based off process of recall. But again, that seemed pretty low. It didn't seem like it was very altered to the study. And then the last one, the use of rigorous designs due to budget and time constraints. So I think it had a low chance of affecting this. There was a time constraint of 24 months, and this could impact the results because it may have rushed the study a bit. They probably needed, more time to see about cognitive impairment or not. It just kind of constrained a bit. I mean, it could have rushed the study potentially, but again, more time probably would have been beneficial. But again, really low threat. I don't think that it really impacted the study much. Number 3, threats to statistical conclusion validity. This one, I didn't seem to find any bias in this checklist either. Everything seemed pretty low threat and non-existent there. And then 4 was the construct validity. Program participants and comparison groups respond differently to some questions. So there could be some bias here because there could be some if there was mild cognitive impairment, some of the questions could have been answered wrong or something by the participants. Just again, that kind of links back to the process of recall. Again, it seemed kind of low because I feel like in this study, with physical activity and in the education courses, I feel like there wasn't much threat there, but it could be there. And then 5, external validity. There didn't seem to be any threats in this section either. There was a pretty broad group of participants, and there was a big vary in age. It was 70 to 89, so it didn't seem... it seemed like they had a pretty broad range of participants, and the conclusion seemed to fit the context of this trial. The conclusion seemed valid. It seemed like everything was done right. And then 6, the utilization. So there was 3 things that stood out to me about how predictions of this trial might go. They had thoughts that they would see an increase in cognitive function in the participants, and the findings can provide guidance for future actions because even though they did not, the ending is they did not see any cognitive impairment. But so for this section, since they did not see any cognitive function improve, they did see physical and motor movements improve. So this can be useful in a future design because they know that regardless, the physical mobility of the participants did increase. So they could use a study following that to see, other physical activity trials. And There is evidence that this trial could have an influence on future designs because they could improve the time of 24 months, maybe add more time, do a couple years versus just 2 years, to see if it'll have any improvement on the cognitive function. Serious operational problems of this trial. I think that one of the kind of the big ones, which it's really not, it's too serious, but I mean, I think that the length of time could have altered or could have really impacted these results. I feel like they could have, again, gotten more results if they had extended this trial a little bit longer. It may not have been enough time for the participants to truly develop dementia or mild cognitive function. There may not have been enough physical activity like going on to really improve the cognitive function. And these are also some of the limitations that they did mention in the study. And then they also mentioned that the health education could have actually improved cognitive function versus like the physical activity, meaning since they're, learning every week and then monthly, that also could, improve. So an overall assessment of this trial, I believe that overall this was a really well organized trial. And they had a good age span of the participants, and they had a really large pool of participants. Again, I repeat, it could have been improved by maybe extending it longer than 24 months. And the cognitive decline may have taken longer if they had done a longer study and it had followed participants over a longer period of time. And if they had done, longer physical activity, maybe it could have. But overall, the results was they did not see any cognitive function improve in any of the participants over the 24 months. So the question I have for you guys for this discussion is, based off everything that I had just mentioned, I did not see a whole lot of bias in this trial. So based off like what I have said and how the trial went, I'm kind of curious to know if you guys think that there was any bias that I could have missed or any threat to the validity of the study. I interpret it as a pretty good trial. So again, I just kind of want to know your guys' opinion to see if, based off what I have said, if you guys see any bias. Well, thank you for listening.